Hello and welcome to the third episode of Essential Finance, a video content series in partnership with bdhSterlling focused on providing financial tips for the Australian business and expatriate community in the UK. I'm Jessica Sullivan, the Member Engagement and Project Manager at the Australia-UK Chamber of Commerce. In the third edition of our 6-part video series, we will focus on pensions, act now, benefit later, and how this complements our series to date on how to best equip the repatriate and expatriate community with the tools and advice to manage their wealth. Our valued sponsor for this series is bdhSterlling, and they are a key partner for our Chamber member network in the market, given their considerable experience in financial planning and wealth management. Today, Paul Davies, co-founder of bdhSterlling and head of international pension advice, joins me for our episode on pensions, or as it was commonly known in Australia, superannuation. I'm delighted to speak with you today, Paul. Welcome and thank you. I trust you're well for a Tuesday in April, particularly with parts of the UK opening up a little more yesterday.
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Jess, and thank you very much for inviting us to speak today.
Sensational. Let's dive right in. Why should we be prioritising how we think about pensions? When should we start thinking about a pension and how to set it up for the long term?
Well, it all depends for an individual on what they want to be doing in the future. What do they picture their lifestyle to be in the future? And there's several questions kind of within that, particularly very topical with what we're talking about today is where does someone want to be living in the future? Where do they want to retire? Do they see themselves in the current role, in the current job for throughout their working life? Do they see their working life easing off towards retirement? So it's very much part of the consideration moving forward, really, as to kind of planning now, prioritising maybe now those sort of things for the future, really.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Paul. It's definitely something we need to have on our radar as a priority. With that in mind, what's the best way to structure your pension fund between the UK and Australia for an optimal return? Are there any contribution incentives we should be aware of in each country?
Well, yes. So if you're working here in the UK and you're contributing and your employer is contributing to a pension here in the UK, there are big tax incentives at the savings end of your kind of employment and your contributions towards pension. So, for example, if you and your employer are contributing towards a UK pension, there's tax incentives on the way in. So, the government will provide for both you and your employer tax relief on contributions on the way in. As well as that, in the UK, whilst you're growing your UK pension fund, all the growth within the UK pension is tax-free. So there's kind of your incentive there in the UK is very much at the front end. Now, when you come to take your benefits, and if you are retiring in the UK, then 25% of that fund can be returned to you tax-free at retirement, which is currently age 55. Everything else over and above that would be accessible for tax in the UK. Now, in Australia, we say it's like kind of the bath water, it's the other way around. So if you go and contribute and your employer contributes to super, there is kind of little or kind of no tax breaks at the front end. And as the fund is in accumulation stage, the funds would be accessible for tax in Australia. But when it comes to take the benefits at preservation age, retirement age, 60, the entire funds can come out tax-free. So there's two kind of ways of incentivising, really. So in the UK, it's very much at the front end, and in the build-up stage. In Australia, it's very much at the end when you come to retirement and take your benefits.
Fabulous. Thank you for that, Paul. That's really particularly helpful when you're weighing up the comparison between the two countries there. Finding and bringing pension funds together is a real challenge. Do you have any advice for those considering consolidating their pension funds, and is it actually possible?
So, yeah, I mean, throughout people's working life, they will go from job to job, career to career. They'll be picking up pensions on the way with each employer as they go along. And for those people, it's very plausible, particularly if you're building up pension funds in Australia and in the UK, to maybe kind of lose track of what you've built up, particularly if you do have several employers during the course of your career. What I would say is, yes, you can consolidate your funds. You should really take advice before doing so. You would want to consider whether you would be consolidating your funds, in the UK or in Australia, or maybe consolidating the UK before moving to Australia. It all depends really on what your kind of retirement plans are, but you would need to take advice first, not just for looking at kind of the planning for the future, but also looking at the various types of pension contracts that you've got, and the funds available, the charges, are there any exit penalties, is your employer contributing to one scheme or another? You wouldn't necessarily want to move out of that and consolidate in another scheme if you're going to lose kind of employer contributions going in. So there are various different points to consider before consolidating your funds. So yes, it's possible, but I would say take advice first before doing so.
Very reassuring to hear, Paul, and that's exactly why we've got this partnership with bdhSterlling here. You mentioned this very briefly before around lifestyle and the kind of lifestyle that you do want to have when you get older, but the question remains, how much do we actually need in retirement? Are there any milestones we need to reach to ensure a good pension?
Well, that's a very good question in terms of milestones, because it's a very, very individual thing. So how much you'll need at retirement, it will depend on what you're looking to do in retirement. Depends what your plans are in retirement. Are you looking, for example, are you looking to retire early? In which case, if you are looking to retire early, then you need to kind of obviously look to be building up your funds early. It sounds very kind of straightforward when you think of it like that. But on top of that, you've got to look at some of your kind of assets and particular liabilities outside of your pension. So if you are going to retire early, do you have kind of the money aside to maybe like pay down a mortgage or something like? Because you don't necessarily want to go into retirement and have a mortgage hanging over you. A lot of people are having children later in life as well. Very, very common with career people. And in which case, do you want be able to still provide for your children? Or are you going to then need to still be kind of working later in life? So the milestones, I would say, are very kind of individual, depending on when people want to retire, where they want to retire, what they're looking to do in retirement. So there wouldn't be a fixed figure, say, oh, well, you'll need X amount of money by the time you're 40, because it depends on what you're looking to do. Again, and that's why pensions is very much part of a kind of sort of cash flow financial planning sort of forecast, where advisors like ourselves, we can sit people down and say, well, look, is this what you're looking to do in retirement? This is what you need to do in order to get it. And we can kind of hold people's hands on the journey along the way, because there are bumps in the road and things change and in which case we kind of adjust the plan in order for people to be able to attain the retirement that they can desire.
Fabulous. Ensuring our funds are set up as advantageously as possible certainly puts us in the driver's seat, so we're beneficiaries of this work when we do come to retirement, most definitely. Closing out today's episode, Paul, how do our network get in touch with you and your colleagues at bdhSterling so they can maximise their pension setup?
So you can contact us through our website, bdhsterling.com, or you can call our offices here in the UK. All the details are on our website. And also we do have offices in Perth, Sydney and Melbourne, which you can contact on arrival back in Australia if that's what you prefer to do.
Sensational. You've got good coverage there, Paul. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you today, and I thank you once again. In the next video, I'll be speaking to Paul Lawson-Tyers, who will be focusing on career wealth management, taxes and salary sacrifices. Stay tuned for the next edition of Essential Finance with our partners, bdhSterling.